Like I said, last time we just talked about your courtship and meeting and how Grandpa saw you at the branch and your roommate had a crush on him and all this stuff. And that was so funny. We went right up to the story of you getting engaged, going up Rock Canyon, and Grandpa getting down on his knee and saying he wanted to be with you forever. And then we didn't get to really talk about after that, the engagement and the wedding. And so today we'll talk about that, and if we have time for newlywed time, great. But I guess Grandpa, will start with you. As far as the engagement goes, what do you remember about getting engaged and then the time after? I don't know how long you were engaged or anything like that. Just anything you want to say about the engagement period.
Well, the engagement itself was kind of a long one, simply because Jerry's parents wanted to come out from New Hampshire. And how long were we engaged for and married?
A year and 3 months.
Okay.
And that's kind of an interesting problem.
Well,
You know,
the reason that we waited that long is my parents were becoming active in the church, really active.
Oh, wow.
And so they wanted to be sealed. And they wanted to be there for our
For
sealing.
when you were sealed.
So we decided to wait until they could be there.
That's awesome.
And that's why we waited so long. After we got engaged, we actually went home that summer. He went to Colorado and I went to New Hampshire. And so we were away from each other for the whole summer.
Now, is this the time when your parents drove out to New Hampshire? Was that summer?
Yeah.
they drove me out in a way so that they could meet the family.
That's very
Back
cool.
Yeah.
And were your parents okay with that? I mean, was that a good thing? What do you remember about that visit, that trip?
It was really nice. They came out. I had worked all summer at their Obergen, which is where I had worked for most summers. And then he had worked up in Colorado in construction. And so he called one day and said that his parents wanted, I was going to fly home back to Utah. And he said his parents wanted to come out and meet my parents. And so I said, that'd be awesome. So they came out. And it's when we lived in the farmhouse on a maple tree farm. And so they came out, and his mom and dad loved it because his dad loves ranches and farms and things like that.
And they're so close to the coast, they love to go to the ocean. Visit
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah, so Mom and Daddy took them around, and then he loved walking. He loved walking up to the barn in the morning. And
Who did, your dad or your dad?
Your dad?
Yeah.
Grandpa's. Your dad loved going out to the barn.
But they had a beautiful barn.
We had a beautiful barn, and we had beautiful
Prettiest thing on the
horse.
property. was
Yeah,
that barn.
that was a great barn. And our horse was amazing. Of course, I'm really prejudiced. I love my horse. And his dad loved Mike too. His name was Mike. And he would go up every morning and just sit on the fence and talk to Mike.
Oh, that's so cool.
Dad was a pure
No,
rancher.
I'd go up with him and sit there. I loved his dad. His dad was a wonderful man. And so they enjoyed the area. The lake is incredible. And so they went to the lake. Mom and Daddy took them to the lake. And we just drove around New England and kind of showed them the New Hampshire area. And his mother went nuts over the antique shops.
Oh. Do you remember that, Grandpa?
I do.
What do you remember about it?
I can't remember all the particular shops, but I remember her attitude of, oh, let's go here, let's go there. It was kind of an awkward time because I wanted to get back and get married.
I'll bet.
Yeah. You'll have to help me out. Now, did they drive back with us?
Yeah, they came out to take me back.
That's right.
And so, but she loved this one, and well, it was actually just an old village store. It was in Wolfboro though, and that's where the Marriotts lived. And so she loved seeing Marriott's compound, and then we went to the old store in Wolfboro, which was the best one, and they had tons of antiques. So she just loaded up on antiques.
My mother loved antiques.
Really?
She did. Oh,
She collected an awful lot.
yeah.
Wow.
As you know by our storage unit.
That's a good point.
So they had a wonderful time, and then my friend, during the summer, the elders and I converted one of my friends.
Oh, cool.
And so she got accepted to BYU.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she drove out with us too. And drove back with us.
Was it 2 cars that went back?
No, just your mom and dad's one big car.
Wow, that's quite a crowd.
Yeah,
Well, how many were in the car?
just 5. Your mom and dad and Judy and you know.
Yeah.
And so we drove back to BYU, and then my roommates from freshman year we got a house, and the talk of a house, it was so scary. It was really an old house and had 5 zillion cockroaches.
Oh.
Yeah, it was so funny. But anyway, I'll tell you this one story.
Yeah.
My roommate Bonnie and I, we were fanatical about water fights. We loved water fights. And so
That's funny.
Bonnie was from Wyoming, and she was a Wyoming cowgirl.
Okay.
She was a music major, and she was brilliant. But she'd grown up in Casper, Wyoming. Her dad was the state president, and they were super active. But she was kind of tough.
If you need to get it, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pause this for a second.
Oh dear.
And that she was a cowgirl from Casper, Wyoming, and something. Go ahead, finish the story.
So Judy came out to school to be, she was going to be our roommate.
Yeah.
And so here's this girl from New Hampshire who grew up in a very intellectual environment. And then Bonnie, who is a cowgirl, and then Marion, who was from Wisconsin and very German, and probably one of the most perfect people, just perfect. You know, just one of these people that she still is. She just does everything according to the spirit. She's amazing. And so here's this group of these were our roommates in this apartment, totally different, all of us. And then so Bonnie and I were doing dishes, and we were really into water fights. Marion was at school, and so I guess Judy was in the bedroom studying, and we were doing dishes. We used to take turns fixing dinner, and so it was our turn to do dishes. And so she flicked some water at me, and you never do that. And so I was washing, which was really a bad move on her part.
Yeah.
Because I just took this glass and threw it at her. And then it turned into this raving maniac water fight in this old house that was practically falling down. And so we were throwing water, and Judy came out, and then Marion came in the door, and she started in it. We were throwing cans of water at each other, and there was water everywhere, and we were sliding all over the place, and it was hilarious. And all of a sudden, from out of the woodwork came all these cockroaches because they were being drowned.
Oh my goodness, that's gross. Oh,
We had
man.
no idea. We didn't even know what they were.
Uh-huh.
But all these bugs just started swarming out in the middle of the room.
Oh, gross.
And that's how we found out.
Was that scary?
Yeah.
All of a sudden have all
We
these
all went
bugs?
screaming out the door.
Oh, man, wow.
We practically killed each other getting out the door.
Oh, that's
We were
funny.
just screaming and laughing at the same time and screaming out the door because these bugs were everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we found out that our house was full
That
of
your house was
cockroaches.
infested.
So I shared a room with Judy, who was
Okay.
the girl from New
Yeah.
Hampshire, and Marion and Bonnie shared a room, and hopefully we were a good influence on Judy.
Oh, I'm sure you were.
But that was our beginning of our sophomore year.
And so, sophomore year, you now came back and you're engaged,
Yeah.
right? Anything you remember from sophomore year or from that engagement time period, whether it's school related or engagement related? Anything specific? Grandma, we can start with you.
You've got a better memory than I do.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Is that Eli?
We get it.
So,
That year,
yeah, so when we first got back, his parents took us to school, and we went to our apartment and everything. He went to his same apartment that he'd always had. And before we went to school, we stopped at my grandma and grandpa's, and my grandma and grandpa hadn't told me, but my grandma, because he didn't want to worry me, but my grandma was really ill, and she had been put in the hospital.
they
This
lived
was
in
Grandma
Salt
Kluge?
Lake.
Yeah, Grandma
In Salt
Kluge.
Lake, okay.
And so immediately that became a focus. So
Yeah.
I would go to school, and I was just starting into working in the hospital in my nurse's training.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go to
What
school.
was yours I in school at that time?
You were a senior.
That was my senior year.
Yeah. And so I would go to school during the week and work at the hospital, and then the weekends he would drive me up, and we'd spend the weekends at the hospital with my grandma. And so that was kind of a serious time,
Yeah.
a rough time.
I imagine.
She was super sick, and so our social life was going to the hospital.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Grandpa was super nice because
Your grandpa or my grandpa?
his grandpa, to him.
Him.
Your grandpa was super nice because he would take me up there every weekend, and we
I
would
can
just
picture that.
sit at the hospital with grandma and grandpa. And
Was she coherent? Or?
yeah, she was kind of coherent some of the time. She was really bad, and they expected her to pass away, but she didn't. She's strong, and I remember one night I was sitting in the room with Grandpa, who was the dearest man. You would love him so much. They had such a wonderful marriage. They loved each other so much. And I was sitting in the room with him. Grandma was sleeping, and he was sitting kind of by the window, and I knelt down by him and was kind of had my head in his lap, and he said, "I can't live without her." So he said, "I want to die first because there's no way I can live without her." And he got his wish because she responded, she got well, and she was still really sick, but she got to go home. And that was right around Christmas, just before Christmas. Grandpa's birthday was the 27th of December, and so he was going to be 65 and retire, and he passed away right after she got home. She'd only been home 2 weeks, and he had a massive heart attack and died. And so that was our first semester.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
It was really hard.
I sung at the funeral, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
He sang, what's the name of the song? Anyway, he sang at the funeral, and
Wow.
tough. They called me in school and told me that he had passed away. It's really rough.
He was a fun, good man.
Such a good man.
Just a side line, he loved photography,
Oh, interesting.
and he did some beautiful things. Where are those pictures, or do we have those? I think?
We have some of his photography, but he won all kinds of awards.
Wow.
And he did movies, which I starred in. So you have a grandmother who was a movie star.
Wow, that's awesome to know.
She and her
And my cousin.
Cute.
And Grandma was the one movie was Wandering in Wonderland. And it was down in southern Utah, and we got lost. My cousin and I were there, and we got lost
As far as the movie
supposedly
was
in the
concerned.
Oh, I
movie.
thought you meant you literally got lost, but okay, no,
And
in the movie. Okay.
Grandpa wrote the script, and in the script we get lost in this wonderland, and we can't find our way, and we're really scared. And Grandma was an Indian, and she's sitting on a rock, and we come up to her and ask her where to go.
That's funny.
We still have the movies, but he got all kinds of awards for his movies. He was really good.
Were there other family members around, or why was it you that went to the hospital? Just because you were so close to him?
Well, Grandma and Grandpa Gunn lived in New Hampshire, and my aunt and uncle lived in Salt Lake. But I've always been super close
Yeah.
to my
Well,
grandma
during
and
World
grandpa.
War II, you were with them, weren't you?
Well, it's the time I was born. We lived with my grandma and grandpa. So I was super close to them, and I absolutely adored them. So it was really important to me to be there with her. And
I think Jerry was closer to them than anybody. You know, was it?
Yeah.
well, my mother
Well,
was,
it
but
sounds
she
like
wasn't
Well, yeah,
there.
but she wasn't there. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's why we go every weekend to be with him.
Yeah.
Plus, Grandpa, it was really hard for him to be there by himself
Yeah.
with her. So that was our first quarter.
Well,
We
let me
went-
ask you about just maybe anything about how you think that experience maybe affected you or changed you, or maybe what did you learn through that whole experience being up at the hospital so often and having your grandma get better and your grandpa pass away? I'd just be curious, what do you think you learned, or how do you think that affected you?
It was an awfully hard time.
I think it made me more caring. I think it made me a deeper thinker, and made me more sensitive to people's pain, going through it with my grandpa,
Yeah.
and then grandma having to live without grandpa, especially when she was sick. So even after she was home and grandpa died, we'd go up there every weekend to take care of her at home.
'Cause she was still sick.
She struggled. And so we'd go up there just to spend time with her. So I think it made me realize how important family is. you know, and how important it is to care about each other and love each other and do whatever you can to help each other have a better life. Kind of put me in perspective. I quit nursing to take care of my grandma because I couldn't do both. I was starting to slide in school, so because it's really hard, nursing is intense, and so I had to make that decision. So that, at the end of that semester when Grandpa died, I quit. Which...
You didn't quit school though.
I didn't quit school, I quit nursing. Which it was really hard for me.
I believe it.
And I still wish that I could have finished my nursing. But I know I did the right thing because that freed me to be able to go and help her.
Yeah.
Kind of helped me put life in perspective, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting you say, you know, it made you realize the importance of family and how much we should help. Because that's like what that's like your mantra, you know, in my mind. That's like what you do and what you are. And to think that was like the birthplace, so to speak, of that, you know, that's amazing. Grandpa, what thoughts do you have on that whole experience? Memories or anything?
I don't remember it really well, but I remember sleeping down Grandma and Grandpa's basement and getting so interested in all of his movies and films, and it really affected me because I wanted to do a half a third of what he could do. But he did it the old-fashioned way. Big view camera.
Yeah. Wow.
And he had a 16. We have his movie camera. A 16mm movie camera. And we don't really have the projector to show the movies, but we have the movies.
Wow.
That he made. I'd like to. We need to get those transferred to some other medium. You know?
Yeah.
I think it's when you first started to love photography.
Yeah.
And he ended up teaching it. So
That's
I ended up
amazing.
teaching photography.
his grandpa kind of taught him a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And
Talking about it, but he was gone so soon. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with you. I loved him. He was a great man.
he
Sounds like it.
He joined the church when I was 16. And the first year when I came back to school, he wrote me a letter and told me to join the church. I was so excited. And then when I came back to school to BYU, the first Sunday was so exciting because, see, my parents were still kind of wavering in the church, but my grandma had always been super strong. And so the first Sunday I got back to go to school before I went down to BYU. We went to church together. Grandpa went to church with us. He'd never done that. It was so cool. And we got to church and he said, you'll need to excuse me for a minute, I got to go do something. And so he kind of walked back. I thought he'd walk back, and it was right before the sacrament. And so I thought, wow, he's going to miss the sacrament. And so I was sitting there during the sacrament, and I was, you know, thinking about the sacrament and looking down and kind of praying. And the tray came, and I looked up, and he was passing the sacrament. And
That's amazing.
he asked if he could pass the sacrament to me.
That's
Isn't
so
that
cool.
And oh my gosh, I was so excited. He was so cute too. We were both crying. But he was so humble. He had gone through, you know, being a deacon, passing the sacrament,
That's so
and
cool.
everything. He did all of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because he would have been how old then?
Oh gosh.
64.
Yeah, 64.
Yeah.
Oh, because you said he was retiring, right?
So it was a year before he died. And they had their temple recommends and everything to go be sealed in the temple. And Grandma got sick.
Oh, wow.
And then he died before they could do it. But they had their recommends and everything.
That's so special.
But we
And
did their work.
so,
I did the work for you, didn't I?
no. My Uncle Bob did.
Oh, that's right.
You weren't endowed. So
I was in
A
New
week,
Jerusalem.
a week before we went through the temple, my Uncle Bob went through for
For your
my
grandpa.
grandma and grandpa.
So
I mean, for my grandpa. Grandma
Uh-huh.
went through with him and got sealed. And then the day before we got sealed, my parents were married and got their endowments.
wow.
And
The day before? Wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
I know, and then I was sealed to my sisters, my mother and dad, and then the next day we went through.
Wow. Back to back, one
Yeah.
day to the next,
And
sealed
so
to your
I got my
family and your
endowments
husband.
with my mother. She got her endowments at the same time.
Wow,
the
that's
day before.
amazing.
But I was already an elder, wasn't I?
You were an elder, but you'd never gone through the temple.
So when did you go to the temple for the first time, Grandpa?
With Jerry.
Yeah.
Oh wow, so it was the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Wow, that's so cool.
that's something.
That's amazing.
So it was exciting. It was quite a week because 3 generations in 1 week.
Wow, that's true. Wow. That's amazing.
So, what's next?
Well, I think that's all we have time for today. Is that okay?
Yeah,
That's fine.
But
kind of jumped a little.